Next up, we have the biotech company Lipum, where we will start off by showing our pre-recorded investment case. Lipum is a Swedish biotech company focusing on developing treatments within the chronic inflammatory disease space. The lead candidate is called SOL-116 and is currently being developed as a treatment, a biological disease-modifying treatment for rheumatoid arthritis, or more commonly referred to as RA. The company was founded in 2010 and is located in Umeå, Sweden. Since April 2021, the company's stock has been publicly traded on the Nasdaq First North Growth Market. While being one of the most significantly valued treatment markets in the world, the RA treatment market is in desperate need of more efficacious treatment with less side effects. The currently available treatment is inadequate to a huge part of the patient population. SOL-116 is looking to fill in this gap by offering a unique mode of action targeting the previously overlooked BSSL protein. We argue that should SOL-116 manage to deliver encouraging data in the upcoming phase 1 clinical trials, it could catch the eye of big pharma. Accordingly, we project peak sales of more than $600 million for the candidate. We believe that it could mark a new era in the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. Furthermore, Lipum is also developing and establishing a platform of preclinical data on SOL-116. This could potentially lead to the discovery of further possible indications and targets of interest for the candidate. The list of viable chronic inflammatory diseases and pro-inflammatory conditions can be made very long, given the candidate's believed potential in both autoimmune and autoinflammatory diseases. Looking ahead, SOL-116 is entering clinical development later this year with the upcoming phase 1A trial followed by a phase 1B trial. The trials will study safety, immunogenicity, and a few selected biomarkers. We argue that interim and top-line data from these trials will constitute the main catalyst coming up. And if all goes according to plan, the phase 2 trial will likely be initiated in 2024. We initiated coverage of Lipum with a base case valuation of 22 SEK per share. This suggests some 30% upside potential from the current share price levels. Furthermore, we have a optimistic bull case scenario of 35 SEK per share, where we assume positive top-line data from the upcoming trials. We also have a pessimistic bear case scenario of 5 SEK per share, where we instead assume disappointing results from the same trials. Overall, we see Lipum as a very exciting investment case and believe that should the lead candidate, SOL-116, manage to deliver some encouraging data in the upcoming trials, it could catch the eye of larger industry players. So that was our pre-recorded investment case. Now it's time for the CEO, Einar Pontén, to give us a presentation of the company.
Thank you. Okay, we aim for a better quality of life for the millions of people suffering from chronic inflammatory diseases. And the reason why we can do that is because of the discovery of previously overlooked a novel target molecule that we call BSSL. And to illustrate the importance of BSSL, we can look into this animal model for arthritis called collagen-induced arthritis. If you administrate collagen to a mouse, it will establish arthritis according to this graph. But if you instead administrate collagen to genetically modified mice called knockout mice that don't have the BSSL molecule in the circulation, is completely protected for developing the arthritis. And this is also something that you can illustrate by histology. by histology. So here you have the joint and the cartilage in the joint. For the knockout mice, it's more or less intact, but for the wild type mice having the BSSL molecule, the cartilage is destroyed, and that can be quantified also by a biomarker protein called COMP, where you see that the higher level of COMP, the higher destruction you have of the cartilage. So that was the basis, the fundamental background for testing the idea of blocking BSSL with an anti-BSSL antibody. And this illustrates in the pristine-induced arthritis model what happens if you provide an anti-BSSL antibody to rats. And as you can see, they are significantly less affected compared to the control group. So, based on this, we decided then to develop a therapeutic a lead candidate, and that is SOL-116. This is a humanized monoclonal antibody. Today, this antibody has passed the manufacturing, GMP manufacturing. It has passed the toxicological studies, and we have applied for patent and expect to have protection until year 2040. Previously, we have granted patents for the treatment method concerning rheumatoid arthritis and juvenile idiopathic arthritis, and it's still pending for inflammatory bowel disease. And to do all this job, you need to have competent people. And over the years, our team have grown, and now I'm very proud and grateful to have an extremely experienced project team of people very dedicated to the task. Still, we have also the founders active in the company, and the names are marked in yellow here, and they are also still major shareholders of Lipum. Should mention also that most of the team members took the opportunity to sign on for warrants in the beginning of this year. So there is a strong dedication for our goals in Lipum. So we have identified a number of market opportunities, and first of all, we go for the lead indication, rheumatoid arthritis. That's the indication where we will aim for a clinical proof of concept. But we also have a second group of indication, that's Crohn's disease, colitis, and also lupus. And these indications could also be subject to clinical trials organized by Lipum. But there is a group of other indications because our asset is SOL-116. So to exploit the value of SOL-116, we want to explore the possibility to treat a number of different indications. The group 3 here are indications where we have either good ideas or we have some preliminary results indicating that it could be interesting to follow up. And that can be done in a very cost-efficient way. So we can do preclinical studies, animal studies, to get data. And this data, then we should absolutely then use it to establish collaborations with other parties that have both the experience and the competence regarding these diseases. But talking about rheumatoid arthritis, it's estimated to have a market value of $29 billion in 2029. And the absolutely dominating product group here is the so-called anti-TNF biologics. Today, it's dominated by the original anti-TNF biologics, but in 2029, it's expected that the biosimilars will have established a rather significant market share. However, that doesn't mean that the market will decline. It will still grow. The growth rate will be a little bit less. The market today is around about $27 billion. And the reason for this is that the biosimilars are also relatively expensive. However, there is an inherent problem with these anti-TNF drugs. First of all, less than 40% of the patients experience a 50% improvement in 6 months, the so-called RCR50 value. Another problem is that around about 30% of the patients are non-responders. So there is a need for some alternative therapeutics for these patients. There has been a lot of hope for the so-called JAK inhibitors, the Yasus-Shinase inhibitors, but just recently FDA issued another additional box warnings on these drugs because of data from new safety studies. So that means what we see clearly is that there is a need for an alternative mode of action to treat those patients that are helped by today's therapy. So for that reason, there is clearly a blockbuster potential for SOL-116. And right now, we are planning to start during the fall our first in-man study, the phase 1A study. And obviously then the primary objective is the safety. The secondary objective is to follow the pharmacokinetics of SOL-116. And the third is interesting because that's an explorative objective. We will monitor the level of the target molecule. We will also monitor a number of different inflammatory biomarkers. And luckily, we managed to include also one group of RA patients in this study. So that means that we will have data from both healthy volunteers and from RA patients. It will not be fully study for telling about the effect, but we will get a lot of information and know-how and knowledge that will be helpful for planning and designing future clinical studies. And in the understanding of mode of action, it will also give us the direction for additional studies also in the preclinical field. It's worth to mention then now when we enter first phase 1 study with our biological drug, and that is the fact that based on the statistics, we have around about 4 times higher probability to get a market approval for biological in this autoimmune disease field compared to small molecules. So the success rate for biologics is much higher. So Lipum's strategy now is very easy to understand. Our main track is to proceed in the clinical development. First of all, it's a safety study. Then we move on for a proof of concept study in phase 2 on rheumatoid arthritis. In parallel, we will continue and we will escalate the preclinical investigations on other indications. And we will also study, of course, more on the mode of action. And equipped with data from these clinical studies and the clinical studies, we will seek partnering for the continued clinical development. And of course, that in the end, we expect that will offer a lot of new business opportunities further on. We are backed up with very strong and very competent, with high knowledge shareholders. And among the shareholders are also the founders, and together with the management, I should say, hold around about 20% of the ownership. And why should you be shareholder then? Well, we are working on something where it is a very high medical need for something that have a different mechanism of action. Lipum has discovered completely new and overlooked target molecule, BSSL. We have developed a therapeutic antibody designed to block the BSSL. And all this have we done for a huge market. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for a great presentation, Einar. Now, to begin the Q&A, obviously the main event coming up for the company is the initiation or the study start with SOL-116. What are your expectations and hopes regarding the study?
Yeah, well, I mean, you shouldn't have too high expectations on the outcome in terms of efficacy or something like that, because it's not designed for that, and you don't have the number of patients involved in this. So it's entirely for explorative purposes. We include this group of RA patients, but anyway we believe that it will be very helpful for us to get data on biomarkers and such things that can give us guidance in the continued program. Then on the safety side, we have no reason to believe that we should have any safety issue based on the data that we have from the toxicological studies that were made, the GLP study on 13 weeks, where the doses were significantly much higher than what will be used in this study. And we couldn't see any adverse effect at all, actually.
And regarding the secondary and explorative endpoints, do you believe that the data on this will help you in the guidance and the designing of future phase 1 trials, potential phase 1 trials in other indications with the candidate?
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's not only for the RA direction, it's also something that could provide guidance for other indications, and that touched the subject of mode of action. Of course, we don't get the full picture from one study, but we probably get hints on biomarkers of particular interest, and that could be helpful also in the other studies we are doing preclinically for understanding the mode of action. But if on my wish list is, of course, that we should get guidance also that we can optimize the next study in a way that we could melt the phase 1b study into a phase 1/2 study, so we could melt these upcoming studies into an efficacy study directly. But that is my wish list, and we don't know yet. But this is certainly something that the team will work with during the last quarter and the first quarter next year. So we should be ready to start early on after this first study is finalized.
Very interesting. And if we're talking about potential licensing partners, of course, you mentioned in the presentation that you're looking for licensing partners for the continued development of SOL-116. Are you actively working on maybe creating a contact with potential suitors, or is this something for the future?
This is something we have been doing ever since I started work in the company. Well, 6 years ago now. We have been in contact with other pharma companies, huge pharma companies, to get them to know about this and to have them on board in a kind of discussion phase. But now when we reach the clinical stage, of course, there are reasons to believe that they will be much more interested to discuss it now. Still, anyway, it's not that out-licensing is like that. You have to start somewhere. Probably you start to do something together. You do some collaborative work. Either you do it yourself or they do it in their labs, and then when you get to know each other, then it could be something that develops into some kind of business opportunity for us. But I always think that you need to work together first before you make any deals in that direction, unless, of course, if we have efficacy studies from a phase 2, efficacy results from a phase 2 study, then it's a different situation, obviously. But at this point, our aim is to get into collaboration, and 2 reasons I would say. That the first reason is to benefit from their experience and competence and resources, and the second reason is, of course, from a financing perspective for us.
Yeah, of course. As you say, it's a long process finding and cooperating with licensing partners. But I think it's very encouraging for shareholders to know that
Lipums name is out there and that you have it definitely is
some contacts.
Yeah, absolutely. And since many years, and we intensify that activity now when we are soon are in a clinical stage company.
Very encouraging. I think our time is running out now, but I want to thank you for a great presentation and some very interesting answers.
Thank you. My pleasure.